Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa tabi'a hudah, amma ba'd. Today, inshallah, we will talk about practical steps, certain things that you have to do in order for you to be on the path of seeking knowledge properly. Now, language is a key here, because based on how you will seek knowledge, the language that you select, and the availability of the books, that will determine how far can you go. I had to search online to see what is available in English. In Malay, it's hard for me. That's what I want you actually to do, please. Next week, if you give me a list of the available books in Malay, in each type of the knowledge, we have the Quran and its sciences. Okay, so what is available there? Sciences of the Quran, mainly the tafsir, that's one of them. Then fiqh Shafi'i in particular, if that's what you want to pursue, and this is the common here, or other schools of thought. And after that, the next step would be fiqh al-khilaf, the fiqh of disagreement. Books that are written and mentioned more than one opinion, one school of thought. This is two. So we have sciences of the Quran, mainly tafsir. We have fiqh, usul al-fiqh. What is available in usul al-fiqh? Principles of jurisprudence. That is usul al-fiqh. And then after that, there will be also other books like maxims of fiqh. And then after that would be maqasid al-sharia, objectives of the religion. All these are advanced sciences that are not suitable for the beginner, the student of knowledge who is beginner, to go and read in them, because he or she will not be able to understand, and if he or she were able to understand, still they will have difficulty knowing what they are reading. So we're finished now with this. Then we have sciences of hadith, ulum al-hadith, mainly mustalah al-hadith, hadith terminology. Hadith terminology. Then the books of sharh al-hadith, the books that comment and explain the hadith books. What is available there? So now we have fiqh and its sciences, we have hadith and its sciences, Quran and its sciences. Then we come to an important type of knowledge, which is the aqidah. What is available there? Sciences of aqidah, the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, asma and sifat, names and attributes of Allah. So you will inshallah come up with the list of the names in Malay. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to explain to you in general, and that's in English. If I were to give this session in Arabic, it would be different. It would be different. Why? Because the books that are in Arabic are abundant. They are available. Like instead of one book, you have many books, many choices. So depending on your students, what do they want, you give them a list. But in English, we are limited. I remember even when we put together the curriculum for Aris University, we had to struggle with the available books, because what's the use if I tell you this is a good book but it's not available in English? How you will be able to benefit from it? Now the solution would be, and this is something you need to consider, solution would be is actually to learn Arabic. That is a solution. Now, for many of us, we don't like this because it's hard, but doing that will save a big deal of time for you later in the future. The true student of knowledge who wants to become a scholar cannot do that without knowing Arabic. This is a fact. Now, with English, yes, you will learn a lot. I'm telling you, you will learn a lot, but you will reach a level where you cannot go any further. You have to know Arabic. Why is that? The Quran was revealed in what language? Arabic. So instead of trying to understand through a medium, through a translation, you are reading directly from the Quran. You are reading directly the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's not a waste of time to invest 1 or 2 years just learning Arabic. And I see, alhamdulillah, here they have some courses learning Arabic and they have a curriculum, so this is something you need to consider. This is something you need to think of seriously, learning Arabic. See, even for Arab speakers, for students of knowledge, there is an entire type of knowledge. That's why I'm telling you, it would have been different if it was in Arabic. Because there is what we call nahu. In English it's grammar, but in Arabic it's more than grammar. Because what we have in Arabic, the word itself could change without changing the letters. Just the articulations. Fatha, Dhamma, Kasra, what is above and below the letter. That changes the word. So you need to know what we call i'rab, the position of the word itself. It could be in the front, but it could mean 3 different things, and this is not available in English. Like Muhammad daraba Ahmad. Muhammad here, Muhammad hit Ahmad. That's the only way you have it in English. We start with subject, verb and object. In Arabic, you could start with either one. Either one. Depending on what do you want the listener to know first. If you start with the object, because you want to pay attention to the object. So Muhammad is actually not the one who did the hitting, but he's the one who got the hitting. This is possible. So in the Quran, there are certain ayat where this is clear, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts with the object. Iyaka na'budu. That's a clear example. Why Allah says Iyaka na'budu? You alone we worship. What's the difference when you say we worship you? We worship you, or you alone we worship. In Arabic it's different, even in English. Maybe you don't notice it, but it's clear in Arabic. When you say Iyaka na'budu, you alone. When you say Iyaka, you leave out anything else, anyone else. But if you say we worship you, it doesn't mean that you don't worship someone else. So they say in Arabic, putting the object in front means specifying and limiting. Okay, that's just an example. And there are many examples as well. So this is something you need to consider seriously, because then also the available books would be a lot. Now, by the way, this is a general question. The copies of English books that are done by Darus Salam and other bookstores, are they all translated to Malay or not necessarily? Do you have like a similar, because I'm looking back here, I should have invested some time, but I didn't have the time to look. I look at some books and I don't know, these are Malay or English?
Most of them are Malay.
Most of them. Okay. Yeah, so this is something you need to know, because I don't know. Even if I look at the book, some of them look the same, but you would know what is it. I cannot read Malay still. So you come with a list and we will see what is matching. Now, I'm telling you what to start with. In the past, for the students of knowledge, They didn't do what we do nowadays. What we do now is we have one class for fiqh, let's say, and then another class for aqidah. They didn't do that. They would start with one type of knowledge until they finish it. So they start from the beginner to the intermediate, and then the advanced. After that, they would move to another type of knowledge. And then after that, they move to another one all the way until they finish. But in our time, because we live in the age of speed, what are we doing? We are taking almost everything together. So we will follow this because this is the what's going on now. If you tell people start only with one type of knowledge, they may not follow that. So let's do what is common now, to the best available or the best ability that you can, how to seek the knowledge. Number one, the Quran. How much do you memorize from the Quran? Remember, knowledge is an objective by itself or a means. Knowledge. Is it by itself an objective, or it is a means for another objective? Means to what? To please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How? When you know how you are going to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by implementing what you know. That is your purpose. So some types of knowledge are, or most of them, they are means to pleasing Allah directly, or to other types of knowledge that will, because Nahu, for instance, the Arabic language, Nahu, it will help you understanding the Quran better. So it's a means for another thing, which is understanding the Quran. When you understand the Quran, that's better. Quran itself, memorizing Quran, that's an objective. This for you is an objective. You cannot say, oh, what's going to help me, the memorization of the Quran? Even if I did, I don't understand it. Still, it should be an objective for you. So make it your intention from now, no matter how long it takes from you. A student of knowledge cannot be really a student of knowledge without memorizing the Quran. Therefore, whenever you read the biographies of scholars, they mention وَحَفِظَ الْقُرْآنَ, and he memorized the Quran when he was at the age of 7, at the age of 10. You rarely find some of them, or one of them, memorize the Quran later. Over 15, that would be very rare. So now you are 20, 25, 30, 35, even 40. Don't say, I am too old. You are never too old to memorize the Quran. Even if you start with one ayah. A student of knowledge cannot be a student of knowledge without memorizing the Quran. One of the famous shuyukh, one of the great qurra in Syria, he died 2 years ago, rahimahullah. Just 2 years ago he passed away. He is a butcher by profession. That's what he does. He cuts meat. And he memorized the Quran in his shop. Every day spending several hours cutting the meat. He has the knife and all other tools. So he put the Quran in front of him. Every day 1 page. Until he memorized the Quran. And not only that, he went ahead and got ijazah with the memorization of the Quran. And he started teaching the Quran. All that happened in a late age. He died recently, over 90 years old, rahimahullah. He was very old, but he didn't look that old. And his picture when he died, they showed it to everyone that he was smiling. These are the people of the Quran. You see, so never ever underestimate the value of the Quran. It's the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So everything goes back to the Quran. Everything goes back to the Quran. That was the source. At the time of the Prophet ﷺ, how many books were available? Now we have this, we have that, everywhere. You have a big library. But at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, what they had was the Quran. So again, make it goal number 1, memorizing the Quran. That by itself is a goal. For students of knowledge, They would not start with anything until they finish the Quran. But for us nowadays, I'm telling you, go ahead, start with other types of knowledge as well, but your time should be invested mainly and mostly in the Quran. Because it is by itself an objective. Even nowadays, who would people let them lead their prayer? Who are the ones that lead people in prayer? The ones who know more the Quran, even if they don't understand it. Now, I'm not saying it's better not to understand it. It's always better to understand it. But in your case, you want to memorize, but you don't understand. So you want to understand first. So all that will take time. So memorize the Quran and understand it. If you could do both, that's even greater. That is greater. But memorizing the Quran, that is number one. Okay? I hope you keep this as goal number one always. Every single day you ask yourself, how much of the Quran have you memorized? It is by itself an objective. The Quran, reward, great. The reward of the memorization of the Quran is great. On the day of judgment, the Quran will come. This is what the Prophet ﷺ said, like a frail man. So the one who memorized it would look at this frail man, this weak man, and say, who are you? And he says, I am the one that kept you awake during the night. I am the one that kept you from the food, from this. Today, every businessman is looking for his trade, and I am going to protect you. I am going to defend you. This is what the Quran will do. In another narration, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that the one who memorized the Quran, his parents would be crowned. So imagine the parents are wearing the crown. One jewel in this crown is better than the entire earth. So imagine that's for the parents. What about the one who did memorize the Quran? How much reward he or she will get? Recently in Syria, one of the youngsters, she finished memorizing the Quran, and usually we have like a celebration, we have so her teacher was happy, she was proud. Again, when you have a student that is finishing the Quran, you feel that it is achievement for you, not only for the student. So she told her, we want to set the date for your celebration, we want to invite your parents and everyone that you memorize. She said, no, I don't want that. She said, why? She said, I want to ask you first, is it true that on the day of judgment my parents would be crowned? She said, yes. She said, I want to surprise them on the day of judgment. I didn't tell them that I memorized the Quran. I want them on the day of judgment, when they wear the crown, to ask how we got that, to say that it is from your daughter. See how sincere is this girl? She is. This was recently, just recently happened. So your intention when you memorize the Quran is just to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Before you look for what people are going to tell you, or what are going to respect you, or they put you in front to lead the prayer, it is to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is the word of Allah. So this is the Quran. You start with the Quran. Everything is related to the Quran. Now mainly what we have is the sciences of the Quran. This is what we have. And the main science is tafsir. In Arabic we have many books, many of them called sciences of the Quran, ulum al-Quran. How many? There is about 70 types of sciences of the Quran. Like what? Ayat were revealed. There are ayat that were based on the reason of revelation. So you know the context of the ayah, it will be clear. And I gave you the example yesterday about going between Safa and Marwa. If you read the ayah without the context, you think that it's okay whether to walk or not to walk. But that's not the ruling. The ruling is that it is a must. Why? Because of the reason of revelation, the context. So there is an entire science called Asbabun Nuzul. Asbabun Nuzul, causes of revelation. Then we have something called Makki and Madani. What was revealed before Hijrah and what was revealed after Hijrah. You look at the Quran, you look at the surahs, and immediately you have a map that this was revealed earlier, this was revealed later. So you have kind of chronicles of the Quran, how or which surahs came first. Because the order we have, the order now, we start with what surah? Al-Fatiha, then Al-Baqarah. That doesn't mean the first surah that was revealed Al-Fatiha and the second surah Al-Baqarah. No, there is a wisdom behind that, the order of the Quran that we have. But the first surahs were revealed. We have the first 5 ayat of Surah Al-Alaq that was revealed first. So when you know what was revealed first, you will have even better understanding. So that's by itself is a science. Makki and Madani. Then we have Ayatul Ahkam, the ayat about the rulings, only the rulings, because we have in the Quran ayat about stories, history, we have the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then we have ayat about the ahkam, the rulings. Some scholars say they are roughly 500 ayat. Less or roughly less than 10% of the entire ayat of the Quran. So you have only the rulings, every ayah and the rulings that pertain to this ayah. So this is an example. I'm telling you this. You don't have to know all these sciences. As a student of knowledge, you should. But again, what is available in English? Very good book. It is long, but for you, the beginning of it, that's a must for a student of knowledge, is the book of Tafsir ibn Kathir. And that's why I wanted to show you here, because let me see. If you turn off the light, I think it will help. Yeah, this is Tafsir ibn Kathir. This, where is it? Is this one. You see the 10-volume set? Volume 1, only volume 1. Now, by the way, as a student of knowledge, you have to have a library in your house. What are the books that you have? You cannot every time go online. Yes, now this is an alternative that we have books online, but like this book, how can you read it? It's not available online. You have to have it physically. You have to establish a relationship with reading, with the books. So this is a book that is a must to have. But for you as a student of knowledge, what you need now is almost the first 60 pages of volume 1. Why? Because it talks about the ayat, it talks about the sciences of the Quran in brief. So you will have brief, not enough, not full understanding of the sciences of the Quran, but it is a good introduction. This is something. So that's one. Then this is another good book. It's an introduction to the principles of tafsir. This introduction was written by one of these scholars, Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah. Here what you have in this book is the explanation of that introduction, so it's even easier. Sometimes when you read directly from the words of scholars, it will be a little bit difficult. But if it's explained, it will make it easy for you. So this is an explanation of the introduction. This introduction to what? To the principles of tafsir. Again, the Quran is open. Anyone can read from it. No one can tell you stop reading from it. No one can tell you stop understanding it. But there is still a way, a proper way. You cannot come to any ayah and say this is the interpretation. You have to be qualified. So here it will give you like a guideline of certain things. Not everything, but many things, that how the ayat are interpreted. So this is a good introduction for you to one of the sciences, which is what? Tafsir. The tafsir. Okay, so now when you read the Quran, memorized it, at least you are reading the Quran, and every day you should have a portion that should be read. 1 juz, 3 juz, 5 juz, whatever you can read. This by itself is an objective. For a student of knowledge, you have to read the Quran. 1 letter. لا أقول ألف لام ميم حرف. ألف لام ميم, these are 3 letters, not only 1. So you get 30 hasana. So this is by itself is an objective. You read the Quran, now you are on the way to understanding the Quran. To understanding how to interpret the Quran. How you deduce the rulings directly from the Quran. So then you move to the tafsir. What do we have in the tafsir? One of the best books available in English, the one that I showed you. It's 10 volumes, it is large, but there is summary to that. So you should have this book, but you start with something smaller, like the brief interpretation. The brief of this one is like 3 volumes only. So you read the 3 volumes and then you move to this one. Why I'm saying this? One important note. One thing that you should remember always. Never be in rush. Never be hasty. Well, there is 10 volumes. Why would I go for the 3 volumes? I have the 10 volumes, so let's go for this. Chances are you will never finish reading them. You will start with volume 1. If you finished it, most likely you will stop at volume 2, maybe halfway. If you finished it, maybe, so it is not easy. That's why always finish what you started. Finish what you started. This is a problem for students of knowledge. They don't know where to start because they don't have the clear map of what to do. If they did start, they don't finish what they started. For you, and I saw that. I don't know if I told you that before. When we were students, some of the colleagues, you find with them a book of hadith, Sahih al-Bukhari. So first day they are reading from Sahih al-Bukhari. So you expect them to keep reading until they finish. Next day, they have another book of Aqidah. What's going on? What happened to that book? No, Aqidah is more important. We have to understand our Creator more. Okay, next day, book of Fiqh. What is this? Well, I need to learn the practical knowledge, practical rulings. So they go from one type to another type and they never finish. So you start something, finish it. Therefore, when you start with the tafsir, take a book that you finish it completely. Then you move to another book. That's why the 10 volumes, you should have it. Why? These will be like references for you. Yes, you're not reading from them from cover to cover always, but an ayah came to you and you wanted to understand its meaning. You have this encyclopedia, you go back and you see its meaning. Because it's there, you have 10 volumes. But generally, you read the 3 volumes, you read it completely, and then you move to this one. So that's the tafsir. After the tafsir, we have the sciences of hadith, ulum al-hadith. Why this is important? For many people, especially the non-Muslims and the new Muslims as well, how we received the religion. The Quran, there is no doubt about it, because it was multiply narrated. You go anywhere in the world, someone made a mistake, immediately, not only one but a lot of people will correct him or her. Why? It was multiply narrated. It was verbally taken from the Prophet ﷺ by the companions, from the companions by the successors, from the successors by their successors, all the way until our time. We have a list, actually I could show you. I personally made a list of the famous, only the famous narrators of the Quran. Not everyone, because you cannot trace everyone. So the Quran, there is no doubt that it came, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guaranteed the protection of the Quran. But what about the hadith? How do you know that this is something the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said? How do you know? At the time of the companions, late companions, the young ones that lived along, and the successors of the companions, some people started narrating things that are not true. But how can you tell it is true? They started the process of verification of every single hadith. Just like now, I don't know if you have this here, the credit score. If you want to go and buy a car installment, you go to the bank, they see your credit worthiness. Because we have this in America. Two people buying the same thing, one of them get it cheaper. Why? Because his credit score is higher. This is built on time, based on the time. Your credit, how many times you were late in your payments, how many times you paid on time, what are your assets, what do you have, how much credit is there on your balance. So all that is a factor. Then they determine what's your credit score. So in Islam, for every single hadith, we have more accurate system. Immediately you could tell, for those who have knowledge, this is weak, this is authentic. But how? People don't understand that. We have great type of knowledge that no other religion, no other civilization has, which is ulum al-hadith, the sciences of hadith. Why? Mainly tracing the narrators. Scholars came, who is narrating this hadith? This man. Who is this man? This man is so and so. How is his memory? Was he telling from his memory, or he was telling from a book? If he was telling from a book, where did he get it from? From so and so, because that's the chain of narrators. Okay, did he meet with him? When did he die? When did that man die? In what place did they meet? Very hard process they went through. Don't think that Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah, his book haphazardly became #1 book of hadith, #1 book after the book of Allah. Why? He chose only authentic narrations. From the authentic narrations, he said, I chose only the ones that are the top. He said, I memorized 100,000 hadith. That is authentic. 100,000. And 200,000 that is not authentic. So the ratio, whenever you have one hadith that is authentic, you will have 2 that are not authentic. From this 100,000, how many hadiths does he have? How many narrations he have in his book? 7,000. So that is 7%. He selected from what he had, from what he memorized, how much? 7% only. Again, there was a process. How to understand that? There are books written. One of the best books is Muqaddimat Ibn Salah. Let me see, where is that one? I hope I still have it, because I tried to copy it. Yeah, it is here. Just a second. And an introduction. Yes, this is the one. Ma'rifat Ulum al-Hadith, or it's known as Introduction of Ibn Salah. What does it say here on the top? An introduction to the science of hadith. That is a very good book. Another one Another one is called a textbook on hadith studies. This one. This one. That one might seem a little bit difficult for you for one reason. Why? Because it is a translation from a scholar, a classic work, and a classic work needs more time in reading and understanding. But it's better. I always recommend the original work. For a true student of knowledge, he would go for the original work. These are easier. This one is definitely easier to read. So you might want to start with this. But go back to that one that is better. So these are two options in English. In Arabic, I would have given you a lot. There are many other books. And by the way, before I forget, you see where I opened this website. Just let me show you before I forget. The center, let me see, what is it? Center for Muslim Contribution to Civilization. This is a branch of the college in Qatar. That center is funded directly from the royal family in Qatar. Their books are the greatest. The best books, and this is the list of them. You see, this is what I am going through. Their books are the best. One thing though, they are classic work. There is nothing recent like something that is done now. All their books are classic work, original work, and they were done in a very, very high standard. The translation is not done by only one person, but by a committee. So any book that you get from them, you see always they have the Center for Muslim Contribution to Civilization. Any book that you have from them is useful. But again, it might not be suitable for you at this time, maybe later, because some of these books are advanced. Some of these books are advanced. And some of them, like this one, Al-Aqd al-Farid, the unique necklace. This is about the history of Al-Andalus. This is about the history of Al-Andalus. So, it's not related directly to you. This one of the books, part of the curriculum for master's students in our university. The Ordinances of Government. Why? This is a political book. Written by one of the scholars, Shafi'i scholars, Imam al-Mawardi, but it talks about the order of the state. The rules and the duties of the Khalifa. Who is eligible to be Khalifa for the Muslims? What are the duties of the judge? Who can be elected as a judge? The diplomatic relations, everything is here in this book. But for you now, you start with the main types of knowledge. And then you go to these books. Same thing when you go to any website for books like Darus Salam Library. Okay, this is an example. Real life lessons from the Holy Quran. No book is not useful. Every book is useful, right? But it's not time for you. You have a map. Okay, you have a direction. You go through that direction. You don't go right or left. Every book is useful, but it's not time for you. Many times people come to me and tell me, this is a book I want you to read. I say, I will try, but I don't promise you because I have other things to do. And I can put it on the list. If there is time, yes, I can read it. If not, then I'm not going to read it. The same thing for you. You have priorities. So back to our sciences of hadith. two books. You have two choices: textbook on hadith terminology, that is recent one, and the best one is Muqaddimat ibn Salah, the one that I showed you. That will give you clear understanding. Of course, even if you read it by yourself, you will understand only so much. You need a teacher. You need someone to explain. Someone who lived through the narrations, can tell you what does this mean, can show you. Once you finish that, then you go to the books of hadith. The books of hadith. Also, hadith should be something that you read. Scholars in the past, they memorized a hadith. Memorization of hadith for them was an objective. Why? Just like the Quran. You are memorizing the Quran, and every letter you read, you get a reward. This is hadith. What you memorize is the seerah, the life of the Prophet ﷺ. So that by itself is an objective also. Not only to learn the rulings, but to know more the Prophet ﷺ. So they call al-hafidh. What's the meaning of al-hafidh? The one who memorizes. That is the hafidh, generally. Nowadays, we call some people hafidh. What do we mean when we call someone hafidh? Who memorized Quran. To them, that's not even considered something or achievement. Memorizing the Quran, I told you, it's the first step. Hafidh, at their time, is the one who memorized at least 100,000 hadith. 100,000 hadith. Now when I say hadith, it doesn't mean the text of the hadith. It means the hadith with the narrators. With the narrators. It sounds exaggeration, right? It sounds difficult. It's not difficult, because those people, that's what they did. That was their business. For us, every day we have many things to worry about. The features of this laptop, the phone. So we also hafadh, but in different ways. In many other ways, not in the knowledge. But for them, that was their focus. So, there is the sciences of hadith. These two books will give you clear idea. Then there is the books of hadith. We have the authentic books. Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. We have recent scholar who passed away, Albani rahimahullah. He tried to select and choose the authentic narrations from the rest of the books. Sunan Abi Dawud, Sunan al-Tirmidhi, Sunan ibn Majah, and Abu Dawud, al-Tirmidhi, Ibn Majah, and Sunan al-Nasa'i. 4 books. Some people say Sihah al-Sitta, the 6 authentic books. This is not true, because they are not all authentic. The only ones that are authentic, which means you don't need to check on the validity of the hadith. It is authentic. Once you read it from the books, Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. Then, the rest of the books, the 4 books, some of them, they have weak narrations. Those scholars, why didn't they worry a lot about the authenticity? Because they tell you, we gave you the chain of narrators. You check on them. They did their job. They told you, it's narrated to me from this man. This man took it from that man. That man took it from this companion, and this companion took it from the Prophet ﷺ. Somewhere between 3 to 9 people. These are the chains of narrators. The minimum is 3. Imam al-Bukhari, the shortest hadith that he had, 3 people between him and the Prophet ﷺ. The longest was 9. 9 people. So somewhere between 3 and 9 people. Nowadays, this is what is called ilmu-rijal, the knowledge of the people. To see their creditworthiness. Are they creditworthy or not? Nowadays, this type of knowledge is not existent. Why? Those people passed away already. What we could do is to open the books and see the degree of this man. We cannot anymore validate or discredit this person. Why? They are not there anymore. But the people who were alive at that time, this is what they said. There are scholars like Ibn Hajar. He gathered all the narrators that are mentioned in these books and listed them. Each one gave him the degree or the level based on the words of the scholars. So that's what usually people do. For you now, again, there is a lot to talk about, but for you now, as a beginner in seeking knowledge, once you learn the basics about sciences of hadith, you go to the hadith itself. You start with Sahih al-Bukhari, and it is available. I'm sure it is also available in Malay. So whether it's in English, of course the best is in Arabic, but if you don't know Arabic, you have English, or in Malay, you read it. That by itself is an objective. Reading the hadith is an objective. Then again you go to the commentary on the hadith. We have Fath al-Bari, Sharh Sahih al-Bukhari, big book. It took over 10 years. Imagine 10 years working on one book, trying to explain it. That's what Ibn Hajar rahimahullah did. I don't know if it's available in Malay. Fath al-Bari, is it available? Why they are better than you? You let them do something. So you can understand and read the Indonesian? So when we will have it in Malay, inshallah. Okay, so this is one book. Sahih Muslim, also it was explained by Imam al-Nawawi. First, again, as I said, take first things first. Even Sahih al-Bukhari, a lot of narrations are repeated. So the Sahih itself, the book itself, could be 6 volumes. But you could have it in one book. What do you have? The summary. Mukhtasar Sahih al-Bukhari. Start with that. Why I'm saying this? Because who finished it from cover to cover? So you need to start with that. Then you go to the full book. And then you go to the commentary. So that's about the hadith. We have the sciences of hadith. We have the books of hadith. The essential books are 6. Then we have 3 more books. Mainly Musnad of Imam Ahmad. Musnad of Imam Ahmad, big book. Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, do you know how many narrations he memorized? How many ahadith? 1 million. 1 million. But most of them are not authentic. Actually, he started with his son. For 3 years, he was teaching him the hadith. After he finished, he told him, all the narrations that I told you in those 3 years, he said, yes, he said, all of them are not authentic. All of them, whenever you hear them, they are not authentic. That's what he started with him. Then he moved to the authentic narrations. This is Imam Ahmad. That's why they called him Imam Ahl Sunnah, the Imam of Sunnah. What he memorized is something huge, because he went to many shuyukh. When he started in his place in Baghdad, after he finished, no one else to take from. He went to another city. At their time, it was not easy to move. He traveled east to what we call nowadays Iran. From Iran to Afghanistan. He went that far. Then he came back. He went to Hijaz. He went to Egypt. All that walking or riding. Not flying, not driving. So it was not easy. It took them years. That was their life. So Musnad of Imam Ahmad, that's one book. Once you finish those 9 books, mostly there is no other hadith that is authentic is outside those books. Mostly. You have them, you have these books, and you should have them. The books, the full books, Sahih al-Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, Sunan al-Nasa'i, Ibn Majah, At-Tirmidhi, Abu Dawood, all of them you should have them. Why? They include the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Alaykum as-salam. Alaykum as-salam. So this is about the hadith. Next we have fiqh, which is the practical understanding of the rulings. And what you start with is textbook, small text, in one school of thought. In one school of thought. Nowadays, again, if you go online, you find some books, they call them like, let's say, Fiqh al-kitab was sunnah. Fiqh from the book and the sunnah. This is not a way for a student of knowledge. They always started with a school of thought. What is the common school of thought here? Shafi'i. So you start with the textbook, brief textbook. And the common one, the one that is known most, Matan Abi Shuja'. And it is available in English. Textbook in Shafi'i fiqh. Abu Shuja' is one of the scholars, Shafi'i scholars. He wrote a textbook. The statement is brief, it's simple, and it is direct. Actually, most of what we take in the fiqh course, most of it is from there. And I noticed you have here, could you give me one of the, because it's in Malay, I think. Only Arabic? No. This is, yeah, this is Arabic. Why you have this?
It's a method by Ustad. He wants to teach Arabic and explains in Malay.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, this is a current book, Tadhib. It's called Tadhib. What did this Sheikh do? Dr. Mustafa al-Bugha, he is Syrian. He is Syrian. What did he do? He came to that text, and every statement he mentioned the evidence for it. That's all what he did. For a student of knowledge, you start from the text only. Why? As a beginner, you don't have to know the evidence. As a beginner, I'm not saying you don't have to know the evidence, but as a beginner, yes, you don't have to know the evidence. Why? You are following now. You take the text, you know it, and I'm saying you know it because in the past they would memorize it. How big is it? It's about 20 pages, 30 pages. It takes from them a month, less than a month, and they memorize the text. Immediately you ask them about something, they tell you the phrase from the text directly. Like this one, Matan Abi Shuja'. It's very, very brief. Not only that, they composed poems to facilitate the memorization, because poetry is easier to memorize than mere text. So they did that as well. But that's why I'm telling you, in Arabic it would have been different. This session would have been different if it was in Arabic. So, after doing that, after finishing from the text, and why I'm saying a text, you see in the course of fiqh what we have, clear statements, direct statements, that's all, because you have the solid knowledge at the beginning. You go to read, this scholar said this, that scholar said that, what will happen? You'll be confused. This is what happens nowadays. People say, no, I want to know all the opinions. No. As a student of knowledge, beginner, you start with only the text in one school of thought. After that, you go to the second level. Still, it is not even intermediate. It's still in the beginning level. You go to another book that is bigger than this one, but in one school of thought as well. Like a Minhaj for Imam al-Nawawi, rahimahullah. It's bigger than the textbook. After that, you go for the evidences. Still, you are in one school of thought. Then, if you wanted to expand, then you can go for the books what we call fiqh al-khilaf, the disagreement, fiqh of disagreement. And one of the great books, it's also here in this, but remember, that's the end. That's not the beginning, that is the end. Bidayatul Mujtahid, that's why it's called Bidayah, the beginner for the one who is performing ijtihad. It's called the Distinguished Jurist Primer, Volume 1 and 2. This Imam, he follows the Maliki school of thought, Ibn Rushd. Okay? But he mentioned the other schools of thought. And the thing that is very good about this book, he mentions why they disagreed, which is very helpful, but not for someone at the beginner level. This also is actually part of the curriculum of Aris University, but in the advanced level, not for year 1 or year 2. That's later. Why? First, you need to have solid knowledge in one school of thought. Otherwise, you will be confused. You'll be confused. Now, what people are doing nowadays, unfortunately, is this. They say, no, we want to start with this. No, you don't start with this. You end with this. You start with one school of thought only. But the beautiful thing, as I said about this book, he mentions the reasons why they differed. In every school of thought, almost you have a similar book, where a scholar mentions the opinion, what he believes is the correct opinion based on the school of thought, and he mentions other opinions. Like in the Shafi'i school of thought, we have the book of Imam al-Nawawi, Al-Majmu'. Is it available in Malay? In English it is available, Al-Majmu'. Imam al-Nawawi rahimahullah, he died before finishing this book. He reached the transactions, the book of transaction. All the book of ibadat, all of it is finished. He finished it, but then he passed away before finishing or completing the book. He mentions the correct opinion according to the Shafi'i school of thought, the evidence, and then he mentions the other opinions. In the Hanbali fiqh of Imam Ahmad, we have the book called Al-Mughni for Ibn Qudama. The same thing. He mentions all other opinions. Big books. These are big books. Okay, it's good to have them in case one time you heard about a case and you wanted to know the opinions, you go and open it, but not to start with them. Chances are you will never finishing reading them. You start with brief textbook, then explain textbook, only the text. Only the text. Then you go for the evidences for one school of thought. Then if you wanted, only then you go for these kinds of books. Now, once you reach that, then there is something that combines fiqh and hadith, what we call fiqh al-hadith. Narrations that are only about rulings, just like the ayat about the rulings. The Prophet ﷺ is giving the ruling about a transaction, about a divorce, about ibadah, about anything. And we have a book called Umdatul Ahkam. Umdatul Ahkam. It's a small book, 500 narrations, that's all, less than that. So these are 500 narrations, but all of them about what? Rulings. And the beautiful thing is that it is authentic. It's narrated in both Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. So these narrations, you don't need to check on their validity. They are authentic. Every hadith, what are the rulings? That will help you, but again, this is not a beginner level. This is advanced level. Then we have Bulugh al-Maram. Also, it's the same thing, but this is advanced. This is over 1,000 narrations. Okay, and some of them are not really authentic. Bulugh al-Maram. Okay, what is the purpose here? The hadith is about rulings. So you are not only reading that purification has to start with the right hand and then the left hand. You have the hadith. From the hadith you are learning the ruling and what scholars said. But that's again advanced level. And I'm telling you, you read this. Scholars, when they were students of knowledge, would memorize that. They would start with Umdat al-Ahkam, then they would go for Bulugh al-Maram, then they would go for another one, 5,000 narrations, Muntaqa al-Akhbar. Muntaqa al-Akhbar. But for us now, time has changed. So we're asking you only to read, and not even now, later. You don't even read it now, later. Okay. So, this is about the basic fiqh. Fiqh of one school of thought, fiqh with evidence. Then if you wanted to go for fiqh al-khilaf, then fiqh al-hadith. Then after that, usul al-fiqh, principles of jurisprudence. When you are reading fiqh, you know the ruling only. What you know is the ruling. But what about the principle? How this ruling came how scholars reached that conclusion, that this is the ruling. This is something you study in principles of jurisprudence. And there are many books written about principles of jurisprudence. In English, one good book is the book of a current teacher. He's a doctor actually at the International Islamic University here. The book is good. There are some notes, you have to be careful. He's Hanafi, not Shafi'i, but the book generally is good. It's called Principles of Jurisprudence. And I'm mentioning this book because, again, for lack of other alternatives. In Arabic, I could give you at least 10 books, at least. But in English, this is the one that comes to mind. I don't know if you have anything in Malay. Usul al-Fiqh. So, this is helpful. Why it's helpful? Because you know how scholars reached that conclusion, that this is the ruling based on that. It will help you in the methodology of deriving the rulings. So you're not only learning the ruling, but learning how this ruling was formed. That's why books like that, Usul al-Fiqh, what do they discuss? They discuss the book of Allah, Quran. What are the ayat of the ahkam? How the ahkam are derived from the book of Allah, the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, the validity of the sunnah, and then they move to the rulings from the narrations. Then they go to ijma', unanimous consensus of the scholars of the Muslim ummah. Why it is an evidence, who said it is an evidence, who disagreed. Then they go to qiyas, how to perform a qiyas, how a ruling is based on another ruling, how to reach a verdict. All that is discussed in Usul al-Fiqh. Then after that there is even an advanced science, maxims of fiqh. Maxims of fiqh. Like what? I give you one simple maxim. Kullu najisin haram. Every impurity is prohibited. That's a maxim. So, anytime you see something that is impure, you don't need to ask, is this halal or haram? Why? It's haram. Kullu, every. This type of knowledge is advanced. It will help you or give you an overlook over the rulings. You have to have maxims of fiqh. Scholars said no judge is allowed to carry a verdict without knowing the maxims of fiqh. We have 5 major maxims. Al-umuru bimaqasidiha. That's number 1. It's based on the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. Actions depend on their intentions. Ad-dararu yuzal. Harm is to be removed. Anything that causes harm is to be removed. And from every major maxim, there are many maxims derived as well. And there are many books. In English, actually, I don't know if there is any available books. But what we did at the university, we translated one of the Arabic books. And inshallah, it could be available. This is actually part of the curriculum for the next program, inshallah. Once we confirm it finally, next semester, inshallah, there will be a subject of maxims of fiqh. So, that's maxims of fiqh. Then after that, there is another type of knowledge. That's only for the advanced. You see, so you have fiqh. And fiqh, many levels. Then you have usul al-fiqh. Then you have maxims of fiqh. Then you have objectives. Maqasid al-sharia. Objectives of the religion. Maqasid al-sharia. And a very brief statement at the beginning of this type of knowledge, it says that the entire religion came to preserve the 5 necessities. 5 things that are necessary. The Sharia came to preserve them. The self, anything that causes the destruction of the self is prohibited. So that's number 1. The property and the money. The Sharia came to preserve your property and your money. So anything that takes your money, that is prohibited generally. That's number 2. Protection of the religion, that is number 3. Protection of the honor. So backbiting is prohibited, slander is prohibited, and so on and so forth. So these are the necessities. And from there, again, you have the rulings. You look at a general objective. Is it going to achieve one of them? This will allow you in our time, especially in our time, most scholars, they use that in our time, maqasid al-sharia, to see the rulings for the current things that are happening in our time. You go back, there is no ruling. You read the books of scholars, there is no ruling in the book of fiqh. You want to do qiyas, you can, but it will be very difficult. You want something more general. That's what fulfills the purpose. Maqasid al-sharia, the objectives of the religion. Okay, so that's about fiqh. Then we have, with the hadith, we have the seerah, which is the history, the biography of the Prophet ﷺ. You need to know the Prophet ﷺ, your messenger. How much do you know about him? So this is more general because it is history. And we have many books, and this is one of them. As I told you, any book that from this Center for Muslim Contribution to Civilization, the life of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is written by Imam Ibn Kathir, the same author of Tafsir. Okay, it's a big book. This one is big book, and I don't recommend it for you as a beginner. But it is a good book. What we have nowadays, one good book, The Sealed Nectar. Have you heard of this one? Sealed Nectar. Although this book is not suitable for non-Muslims. Why? It is a translation from the Arabic version, Ar-Rahiq al-Makhtum. The English writers, people who write in English, they have a different style. But for a student of knowledge, this is a good book. There is another book for the same author, Mubarak Furi, When the Moon Split. It's a little bit shorter, smaller, easier. So you start with this one, then you go to Ar-Rahiq al-Makhtum, then you can go to this one. Or even to a bigger book, and until now it's not finished translation, but they have already 4 volumes. Zad al-Ma'ad. Zad al-Ma'ad for Imam Ibn Qayyim, rahimahullah. It has 4 volumes already, and inshallah the rest will come. Probably it will be 7 or 8 volumes. Provision for Hereafter. That's the name of the book. Provision for the Hereafter. Zad al-Ma'ad fi Hadi Khayr al-Ibad. For Imam Ibn Qayyim. It is available in English. And I don't know, again, in Malay, what do you have? You should have some books. So that's the seerah. We will stop here, inshallah. I hope you had enough for now to start with. And let's see where you can go, how much you can achieve. But again, please, I want your homework next week, because this will help you. I could have given you a big list of books, but in Arabic. Okay, that will not be helpful. You want something practical for you, either in English or in Malay. So we'll see, inshallah, what you will have next week. Jazakumullah khaira wa sallallahu sallam ala Muhammad wa sahbihi ajma'in. Any questions? Anything before we leave? Yes.
There is a book called Reliance of the Traveler, which is about based on Imam Shafi'i, the faith rulings. It's written with English and Arabic text.
Umdatus Salik. It's green cover. Yes.
What was the soft actually? The Arabic. What kitab is that?
I told you, it's called Umdatus Salik. I didn't mention it for 2 reasons. First one, this is not a beginner, that goes to the 2nd level. Okay, it's still considered in the beginner level, but 2nd level, not the first one. First one is Matn Abi Shuja', that's number 1. Number 2, the translator is a big Sufi. And he added to the book things that are not there, at the beginning and at the end. That's why I didn't mention it. The book itself is good. I like it because it has Arabic and English, and I know what's going on there. I have the Arabic version, I like it. Many times I use it in the English, but I didn't mention it for that reason. If you have it, you are careful, you know what to do, I would say, yeah, go ahead and read it. The translator, no Hamim Killer. That's the name of the translator.
Yes.
Yeah, he's not regular Sufi, he's extreme. Yeah, so that's...
How do we know? I mean,
well, that's why you need someone. That's why the scholars did not just come like scholars like that. They had shuyukh, they had teachers, mentors, to tell them what to do, what not to do.
my question is, if he's a Sufi, so what? I mean, what is it that...
How do you know for you? How do you know? Because he would tell you do this and you say, yeah, this is a ruling, and then you don't know that this is wrong. This is not from the book. This is not even what the scholar said. Even in Arabic, many scholars warned people from certain books, like tafsir. For instance, one of the scholars, his name is Az-Zamakhshari. He was Mu'tazili, from the deviant sect of Mu'tazila. His book is excellent. He goes back to the Arabic language. He gives you linguistic translation, very good. But they told people, be careful from Az-Zamakhshari, because he has fangs and you don't know when they will hit you. That's what they say. So you have other alternatives. It's better. Any other questions? Okay, Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.